Hey guys, KillerPigeon back for another one of these daily vlogs. Now on number 7. Look at that, we actually got it going for a whole week consistently, not too bad. So today I thought we'd talk a little bit about esports, what the future holds in the close terms in relation to COVID. Corona, COVID-19, whatever you refer to it as. The disease that is basically screwing everyone and practically every profession over in some way or form. And there's not really many people that aren't affected. And esports has definitely been affected by this. So, of course, anyone who keeps up with the space and who is an avid fan or works in it will know the amount of events that have been cancelled recently. This has had painful effects for TOs that you don't have to book their things years and sometimes in advance, right? So like a stadium has to be, but it's not, stadiums aren't booked in a few months. That's something everyone knows very far in advance. So they've been hurt by it. Obviously the players, people have been scrambling to put together online tournaments. I've been hurt by it from a work perspective. I lost several high profile gigs, or like very good gigs in my opinion anyway. But I figured it would be interesting to see how it's like impacted the scene as a whole and how things are going to evolve and what we can expect to come out of this and some of the good things that could come out of this. So first of all, we're seeing this initial rush right now from a lot of TOs to be the go-to de facto leader on online broadcast, seeing as that is like the standard now. Big players are probably likely to like dabble in this. We've seen ESL with the Online Pro League has been leading the way in that regard. Obviously LA, the ESL LA major that got shifted for Dota 2 to an online format, and BTS involved in that. You have WePlay announced their Pushka League, as well as obviously doing the We Save COVID Corona charity event. And these people, they want to obviously get content because there's now giant gaps, but the end goal is like you want to try and be consistently across the board with it at a high level so that you can actually just become the guy or gal, whatever, the place that handles that stuff for different scenes. So I think we're going to see a rapid race. I'm curious to see if we'll keep this sort of level of tournaments appearing as the months go on, or if there'll be breaks between them as people aren't just rushing to grab whatever gap there is. Instead, they just kind of chill and dial it back a little bit as maybe one or two people become more kind of clear winners, I guess you could say, in terms of getting winning productions and having high production value. So I think in that regard, key areas to look at that are going to be capable of doing this, I would say the ones, especially in Dota 2, that ring true are probably Los Angeles and Kiev. So those two cities have a decent amount of talent currently present, as well as usually present. LA, especially from like a BTS standpoint, I believe they have quite a lot of the talent locally or nearby. And here in Kiev, from the Russian side, of course, they definitely have a lot of those people accessible and local, as well as right now with the people who came across with WePlay with me, we're here, and there are also some English talent that are they live here by default. I believe people like Banks, who done a little bit of work on WeSave, from like beyond just Dota 2, the people that exist here. Vladislava, you probably slot her in non like an English broadcast. I can maybe see that, and then people like Carl Lizard. There's a list, right? So those are kind of the two strong point areas I want to call them right now. There's a lot of talent in England as well, but it's a lot more spread out. So getting a studio together might not be as easy. And I'm trying to think off the top of my head who would really be stationed to do that. Possibly ESL UK, given the downsizing recently. They still have the studios and access to them. So I think a big play for them could actually be to try and grab broadcast rights and just be a de facto coverage point for them. That might actually see a revitalization for the UK office, which wouldn't be a bad thing in my opinion. I think the other one I was kind of expecting at one point that might try and take up is Poland, as I know ESL have a lot of presence there, right? But obviously with borders closing, etc., you then have to talk about where the talent are right now, and there's not many people who live in Poland as far as I'm aware. So what's going to actually be happening is with these TOs, like we mentioned ESL a bunch there, but smaller tournaments, like smaller TOs, now have maybe an advantage to actually get a footing because certain variables are being removed that were otherwise kind of put them in unattainable comparison, right? So, these small online tournaments wouldn't be able to host stadium events. It'd be too expensive. Well, now the likes of ESL, DreamHack, PGL, all these places, they can't have these big stadium prestigious events. They have to come into the online space. And while prize pool could still be a variable for competition, you're still striking out other variables that make it harder for them to compete. So I think we might see a lot more lower tier amateur tournaments, or these small ones, because on top of that, you have to keep in mind that there's a lot more people staying at home now who are watching. And to expand upon that further, it's not just that they're watching more because they're staying at home. They're watching more and they're engaging more with streams and with esports because there's less to take up their time elsewhere, not just in terms of people who can't do their job right now, but then also I think the big one is traditional sports. So traditional sports can't function right now, right? It literally can't, because it is all about the physical placement. You can't digitally play these sports. I mean, you can. There are things like FIFA, right? But I mean, that's something different. That's its own thing. You can't have Manchester United versus Chelsea, or like England versus Venezuela in a football match in real life right now. So that creates a giant void which needs to be filled, and that's where esports really comes in. I think there's a giant opportunity right now for esports to start hopping onto mainstream media in terms of sports channels on TV, right? And that could be huge for us. Like, that would explode. We're already seeing ridiculous growth. I believe we're now at a point where the video game industry, between esports and like the casual games, all that together, is worth more than any other entertainment medium. So like films, for example, TV, traditional sports. I think it was traditional sports included. I don't know how they're actually breaking those numbers. I know I've seen a few stats that show up, but like you could kind of fluff that to make it look cooler, where it's like, oh yeah, you're making more money than football alone, but what about all sports combined? But definitely right now, esports could make more money than all sports combined, because we can still function. And that's where I would like to see traditional TV broadcasters like the likes of ESPN, right, has already started picking up the slack and bringing more esports to the forefront of their channel. And I would like to see that from others, like maybe Sky Sports, for example, these type of places, because the fact is, it's actually very easy transactional gains for them, because they will spend a tiny fraction of what they do on football or baseball, whatever it is, to gain the rights to a tournament or tournaments or an entire game scene, right? Like if they want to go the full length and buy up the rights to like Valorant's esports scene, which is an extreme example, but you get my point. The cost to do it is a fraction of what they're paying right now. And that's kind of improving when you look at, it's already happening, this comparison of realizing how much more cost efficient esports is than traditional sports when you look at things like sponsorships. I think if you look at ESL's actually been leading the way on this for a while, I think, by getting these traditional sponsors in, the likes of Mercedes, DHL, these type of places that I think they've referred to it as one of their most lucrative sponsorship deals, which is it's a tasty word, right? Because they spend a fraction of what they do compared to, say, on a football event, right? And they have a tiny banner on the side of the pitch that says, I don't know, in this case, Mercedes. The comparison is they could pay 2% of what that costs them, probably less actually. And what they get from an esports event is, title sponsorship. The whole stadium is caked in like their logos everywhere. The players are wearing shirts with their logos. All this type of stuff is like crazy value for them. And I think that kind of that comparative opens the door from a broadcasting perspective, because it's just so much cheaper. And I can't actually undervalue how important the foot in the door logic here is. This taster point for traditional sports channels, right, like Sky Sports, ESPN, to see what they can gain in terms of viewership and engagement and what the cost is, begins a snowball effect. Because once they realize how cheap it is to actually be involved in the esports space, it's like, okay, why are we not doing this more? We should be fronting this. Because the reality is, like, the loss that they could end up making is so inconsequential to the amount they spend per year anyway on other things. It's like an experiment worth taking. And it's even easier to do it right now with the viewing numbers being up, right? Like, more people, as we said, are staying at home. There's more potential eyes, and that feeds in. I'm not saying we're going to see ESPN, have tier 3 Dota or tier 3 Overwatch or something like that, but the mainstream ones, the big leagues that are happening, like ESL Pro League, they could crack a deal with these more traditional outlets that is beneficial from both sides. I think this also might be a good time for platforms to start picking up exclusive esports scenes. So we will highlight a little bit in the previous video about this whole kind of cycle of how we're moving to a point. We're starting with influencers, what happens when we start doing esports scenes, which we're now seeing with Call of Duty and Overwatch, and maybe we'll see it further more as maybe Mixer decides to pick up scenes. And it wouldn't be a bad time to do it, because with more people at home and more people engaging in games, if you find the right game to pay the price for, you will grow your streaming platform at a ridiculous rate with it. Let's say, for example, someone got the rights to Valorant. Let's say like Mixer put in a bid and Riot went, sure. The rate at which Mixer would have new users and viewers coming in, especially if they got the loot drop system that Twitch has going, which I don't think is protected. People can copy that if they want, I believe. You just see a huge uptake. There's just a lot of opportunities right now, and you know, this is some of the upsides. Keep in mind there are downsides for some of the big players right now. Obviously, a lot of events get cancelled, and we mentioned it takes a long time in advance to plan these events out, to book stadiums, etc. It's going to be hard for them to get a lot of that money back. So I do feel for the big players in the game. But it's going to be interesting to see how this kind of levels the playing field out a little bit, because where before these big TOs had the advantage of prestige, you know, being able to like have a bigger budget to throw out to make it a more amazing and grand event. Now, while they do have money to throw at it, they have to find more creative ways of using it. So I'm going to be interested to see what's going to happen around things like content creation, unique themes. I'd love to see things cropping up that aren't just people trying to copycat each other, where you're just doing another who's the best team in this region sort of style thing. Maybe we see something a bit more like the style of Midas Mode, those type of things where you create a unique niche or a unique style. I know I done Red Bull River Runes, which was a 1v1 tournament where they had custom runes involved, and every 5 minutes both players got an item drop, and they were in mirror matchup. So it was like a spin on 1v1s that had become really boring to the Dota 2 audience. I'd be interested to see if that's going to actually become more of a feasible thing now, that you don't necessarily have to worry about competing with stadium events. Then again, these smaller TOs, if they've got the prize pools that they can funnel into, the logic might go the other way, that now actually there's less variables involved compared to the biggest competitors, so we don't have to worry about being too different and edgy. We could just try and compete on a base standard level with, you know, the best teams playing. But that's going to be it for this video. If you have any opinions, be sure to leave them down below. I'd like to see what you guys think is going to happen in the coming months. You know, the wonderful thing about esports and video games is that even in this horrible situation where COVID-19 is shutting down everything and screwing over everyone, our median is one that can continue on to a very large extent, and I'm excited to see how we adapt. Obviously, I wish it didn't come to this. You know, it hurts work for all of us, but I'm intrigued to see how our industry is going to evolve, and I'm excited about the potential for us to grow, as I said, especially into that main media area. But as I said, be sure to leave comments, any experiences, any ideas you got for coming up videos or upcoming videos, be sure to leave them down below, and be sure to hit the like button, share with your friends. It all helps. I'm planning to do this long term. We're only a week in. I'm already committing, okay? I'm looking forward to just looking back and being 300 daily vlogs in. That would be insane. But thank you for the support so far, and I'll see you in the next one.